Democrats have seized control of the U.S. House. It is the first serious challenge to Donald Trump's political power since the 2016 election. And the House has voted on a speaker.
And to the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, I extend to you this gavel.
Nancy Pelosi got the expected nod to return to her post as Democrats now have the majority. She has her work cut out for her, as this is the biggest crop of incoming Democrats to be sworn in decades. House Democrats now have the ability to pursue their own legislative agenda and wield new powers to investigate Trump. The CBC's Megan Fitzpatrick joins me now from Washington. So, Megan, what's been happening in the House today?
Well, as you saw, that was sort of the first order of business, was electing a Speaker of the House of Representatives. And that took a little while because there's 435 members in there that needed to cast their vote. And as you mentioned, as expected, it was Nancy Pelosi that got her job back. She used to be the Speaker of the House when the Democrats controlled it before. She made history as the first woman to do that in the United States. 78 years old, Congresswoman from California. It will be up to her now to guide the Democrats through this new phase of their party's history as they take control and try and challenge President Donald Trump, which is exactly what they're saying they will do, that they will bring more accountability and oversight to his administration. And they're going to do that partly by launching investigations, which they'll be able to do through their control now of various committees on Capitol Hill. They've talked, for example, about forcing Donald Trump to produce his tax returns, looking into some of his business interests. But Andrew, they also want to show that they can govern. So they have a legislative agenda.
We have no illusions that our work will be easy and that all of us in this chamber will always agree. But let each of us pledge that when we disagree, we respect each other and we respect the truth. We will debate and advance good ideas no matter where they come from. And in that spirit, Democrats will be offering the Senate Republican appropriations legislation to reopen government later today.
So proposing those bills to reopen the government will be their number one priority. But she also talked about in her remarks some of the other policy areas they want to target, including climate change. She mentioned specifically environmental protection, healthcare as well. And more broadly, Andrew, she talked about how they want to govern. She said the Democrats will be transparent and that they all are, and that they're also interested in governing in a bipartisan way, that they want to seek to bridge some of the divides, not just on Capitol Hill, but in the United States right now.
And so Pelosi mentioned in that clip the partial government shutdown in the U.S., which is now in its 13th day. Tell us more, Megan, about how the Democrats are approaching the end to that.
Their idea is to propose two pieces of legislation today. One would fund the government departments that have been shut down since December 22nd because of the lapse of funding. It would fund those departments through September. The other bill would fund the Department of Homeland Security separately just for another month. So that sort of gives everyone some breathing room, gives some room for the White House and the Democrats to keep negotiating over border security. But that bill does not have the $5.6 billion that Donald Trump wants to build a wall at the Mexican border. And for that reason, he's already signaled he would reject this idea. So the House will pass these bills, but then they go over to the Senate, which is still controlled by the Republicans. And Mitch McConnell, the leader there, has said he won't put those bills to a vote unless he knows the president will sign off on them, which he won't. So despite the Democrats' efforts here, it doesn't look like there'll be much movement, and there doesn't look like any immediate end in sight to this government shutdown that is affecting some 800,000 federal employees. They have no idea when their next paycheck will come, Andrew. It's quite a standoff still between the White House and the Democrats over this issue. Yeah, so much to watch for, Megan. Thank you. That is the CBC's Megan Fitzpatrick in Washington. Now, the woman who's just been elected as U.S. House Speaker says she won't rule out impeaching U.S. President Donald Trump. Nancy Pelosi spoke to NBC's Today show before her election to the third most powerful job in Washington.
Well, we have to wait and see what happens with the Mueller report. We shouldn't be impeaching for a political reason, and we shouldn't avoid impeachment for a political reason. So we'll just have to see how it comes.
Do you believe the special counsel should honor and observe the Department of Justice guidance that states a sitting president cannot be indicted.
I do not think that that is conclusive. No, I do not.
Nancy Pelosi went on to say it's important to wait for the results of the Robert Mueller investigation. Let's go to the Hill now. And Jonathan Allen, he is a political commentator for NBC News, focusing on the presidency. And Jonathan, appreciate you taking the time. So before she was even sworn in as Speaker, Nancy Pelosi invoked the specter of impeachment. How much is that hanging over the proceedings today?
Well, it's certainly an issue that all of the members are thinking about. Republicans campaigned, certainly President Donald Trump campaigned in the run-up to the midterm elections on the fear that if Democrats took power, that he would be impeached and potentially removed from office, though that would take about 20 Republican votes in the Senate to do it. Democrats have varying views on impeachment. I think what the Speaker was trying to get across there in the interview with Savannah Guthrie was that she is open to the findings of Special Counsel Robert Mueller and is neither closing off the possibility that his findings will be provide reason to impeach the president, nor is she closing off the idea that they will fall short of that.
Does it help Donald Trump to have Pelosi as a foil now that she has a more prominent role as a speaker? Does it make it easier for him than it did when Paul Ryan, a Republican, was speaker?
It is definitely easier for Trump to have somebody to fight against, in terms of rallying his base. But his base is pretty aligned behind him. I think, there is some speculation that the president is excited about having a Democrat to fight against. Generally speaking, a party that would rather have control of the House of Representatives than not have control. It is a factor that he sort of is outside of his control as he seeks re-election. And as he has seen already, Nancy Pelosi is not a leader to be trifled with.
There's certainly lots on the agenda for this new Congress. I'm not sure that the new NAFTA is necessarily top of mind in the United States today, but it is something that Canadians are watching for. Given that this was seen as something that it was a win for Trump, do you see this being challenging for Congress to get through? Do you see Democrats maybe resisting giving Trump this win?
I think absolutely Democrats are resisting giving Trump a border wall. I think they're resisting giving him legislative wins in a variety of areas because they disagree with the policy. I think the new three-way deal with the U.S., Mexico, and Canada remains to be seen. There's a lot of resistance to trade deals within the United States, and particularly within the Trump wing of the Republican Party and among liberal Democrats. So the fate of that trade negotiation remains to be seen.
Another order of business is ending the shutdown. Senator Lindsey Graham was on Fox News and talked about what you just mentioned, the wall and its potential impact on the Trump presidency. Let's listen to it, and we'll just pick up on the other side of the clip.
If he gives in now, that's the end of 2019 in terms of him being an effective president. That's probably the end of his presidency. Donald Trump has made a promise to the American people. He's going to secure our border. Every Democrat in the past has voted for border funding. Now they're changing their mind. That's the end of us if we give on this issue as Republicans.
So what do you make of that? How much of Trump's future hinges on funding for the wall?
Well, Lindsey Graham would be someone to ask about the perils of being a moderate on border security and on immigration in general, because he has made himself persona non grata with conservatives in his state at times over his moderation on immigration. I think the president has put himself in a tough place. The conservatives, certainly the base of his electoral coalition, is demanding that he stand up for this wall, and at the same time, he's got a Democratic House that's not going to give it to him. In the balance hangs the functioning of the U.S. government, and he has more to lose than the Democrats in Congress do, in that he is on the ballot in 2020, and the presidency is a lot more than any of those individual House seats are in terms of power. So if even if the public decides that both are at fault, that doesn't bode well for him. This is, just in talking to Republican members of Congress and talking to Republican strategists and folks around D.C., There are not a lot of obvious paths out of this for the president that don't involve him backing down from the wall demand.
You know, we've seen how combative Trump was with Republicans controlling both houses of Congress. Now that the Democrats control the lower chamber, now they control the House of Representatives, what can you imagine seeing in the next couple of years?
You know, I think I think the president's going to continue to be combative. I think, you know, Americans have come to expect from him that he's a fighter, and it's one of the things that people who are in that base of his have come to expect from him and appreciate from him, and they like his frankness and his candor. And even those who are not huge fans of the president's policies or are not always fans of his behavior do like the fighting spirit at times. And so I don't think you're going to see a big change in his presentation or character. I mean, he's been willing to go after his friends. I expect he will be just as willing to go after his political enemies. I do think that he needs Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer in order to get anything done, and to win re-election, he probably will need to show some progress on matters of importance to the American public. And so you may see him treat them perhaps with a little more politeness than he does some of his other targets.
Interesting. All right, Jonathan, thank you. That was political commentator Jonathan Allen of NBC News in Washington.